So we
Right.
are going to speak about TUC and your application strategy and what was your interview experience at TUC. So just
Yeah.
some quick words about your whole application process at TUC. What worked? Because TUC gives out very few interview invites every year. So any kind of insights on your application strategy?
So Saket has a lot of focus on general management, and given my profile, because I have an entrepreneurial background for the last 1.5 years, so I decided that I'll concentrate on mentioning that post MBA I want to take up a general management role because I want to come back to my company. And all my essays were around that itself, and I think that is something that held in my application process.
So I'm seeing a lot of applicants from India who apply with a family business background, the background you're from, and
Yeah.
they are seeing a lot of success with TUC in the recent years. So,
Right.
so what has your research been on this?
uh, I think that's true, not only specific to family business, anyone who wants to take a general management role. So I even talked to one of my undergraduate seniors who's from TUC, and even she mentioned that more than family business focus or more than entrepreneurship focus, TUC has a very general management focus. So for anyone who wants to take up a role which is general management based, TUC is a very appropriate school.
Perfect. So this is where we could move on to speaking about your interview experience. So can you talk about the medium of communication for your interview, who interviewed you, and what were your overall impressions?
My TUC interview happened on Skype. Um, an AdCom member interviewed me from India itself, and I found that the TUC interview was a little bit stressful at times. Like there were a few points where there was a lot of cross questioning, and some of the questions were a little different than what I had experienced in other interviews. So I would say that the TUC interview was a little unconventional.
So before we delve into the kind of questions that were asked to you, let me just press you a little bit on what was the interviewing style was like.
I think the nature of conversation was unconventional, so there was not too much grilling. There were maybe a couple of questions where there was some cross questioning, but the remaining interview was like a conversation only. It was just the kind of questions were a little different.
Got it. So this is where we could hear from you about what kind of questions were asked and what did you feel about those questions. So can you just walk us through specific questions that were asked to you in your interview?
Right. So it started with the usual about me. Then one of the questions which my interviewer asked was which other schools did I apply to, which is also okay. But he also then asked me that if I got a scholarship to all the schools that I had applied to, and I did not get a scholarship from TUC, but I got an admit to TUC, then which one would I choose? So, that's a very different question which I hadn't come across earlier. And on the spot, it's really difficult to answer a very it was a very tricky question, if I may say, because you don't know what to answer. Logically, if you get a very big scholarship from some other school, most students probably will prefer that other school. But then since you're interviewing for TUC, logically, it makes sense to justify why you still want to be at TUC.
Got it. So what was your answer to this question?
So for me, I told him that, for me, it's the long-term gain that matters. So it's very difficult to say right now what, like, I don't know what scholarships other schools have offered, but frankly, if the long-term gain at TUC, which I feel is immense, if there's a huge long-term gain from TUC, then for me that is what is important, and not the short-term gain of scholarships, because eventually I know that I'll be paying back my loan, maybe not in 3 years, maybe in 5 years. So yeah, I did tell him that I would still prefer TUC.
Got it. So, I mean, I think there was no right or wrong answer to this question, but you handled it well. So, kudos to that. You were thrown a bit off balance by the question itself, but you kind of managed it. So perfect. So anyway, we were speaking about the questions that were asked to you during your TUC interview. So any questions, any additional questions that were asked besides the one you spoke about?
Then he did ask me that what would my like if he were to contact one of my teammates in my company, what would they say about me? So I mentioned a couple of qualities which my teammates would mention about me. But then his next question was that what is that one negative thing that your teammates will say about you? So I would recommend all applicants to be prepared for such questions about negative traits that someone else will mention about you. And then another question which was very similar to this was that what would your peers like, say you got into TUC and 10 years down the line you met some of your classmates, then what would your classmates say about you? So although it was similar, probably the interviewer wanted to test that how am I in a work setting versus how am I with friends. One more question he asked me was, in the end, what do you want me to ask that I have not already asked? So that is an intelligent question, because you really need to think about.
So do you remember what you ended up saying about that?
So I frankly hadn't prepared for such a question. So whatever came to my mind first, I naturally felt that it's important for an interviewer to know what has been the turning point in my life, that one defining moment that has shaped my personality. So I told my interviewer that you probably haven't asked me a question based on those lines as to what has shaped me as a person today. So then he said, okay, go ahead and answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. But since your entire TUC interview was very unconventional, so let me ask you that, was there anything conventional that was asked? So for example, why do you want to go to TUC, or what your goals are, etc.?
Yeah, those normal conventional questions were asked as to why I want to choose TUC, and which other schools I've applied to. All these were asked. And then about specific projects which I had mentioned, a couple of experience-based answers questions which he had asked. I had talked about some projects which I had worked on, so he, went into the details of those projects. So those were normal, conventional questions which were also a part of the interview.
So just talking about the focus area, so do you think that there was a focus area during this TUC interview? For example, a lot of school stress about why that particular school. So was similar the case here?
Correct. I think in my TUC interview, that was a very important question. Maybe not so much in other interviews, but I felt that in my TUC interview, there was a lot of stress on why specifically I want to go to TUC, and my interviewer definitely wanted to be very sure that TUC is the school for me. In fact, he even asked me that, say you got into TUC. He asked me a very open-ended question that what will you do at TUC? Now that is a very open-ended question. You can talk about academics, you can talk about extracurricular, you can talk about other things that you want to do while you're at TUC. So you should have really done like a lot of research on the school to mention very specific clubs, very specific professors you want to study under, very specific electives you want to take, or initiatives that you want to be a part of.
Perfect. So that brings me to my next question. that given the fact that you had such an unconventional interview at TAC, what worked for you and what advice would you give to future applicants?
I think whoever's preparing for TAC, I think the most important thing is to know why you want to go to TAC. Because TAC has a very small batch size, and they want to be sure that every person who's part of their class is really, really passionate about the school. So, if you know alumni, you should get in touch with them, get to know what TAC is all about, because TAC has puts a lot of emphasis on team-based and collaborative learning. That's very important for them. You should probably, if you don't know any alumni, you should probably, try LinkedIn, get in touch with people who are current students and send them an email.
Sure, perfect. So I just have a follow-up question on your research strategy when you reached out to a lot of alums. So what kind of questions did you use to ask these alums? And how soon should one start reaching out to these alums when they decide that they want to go to a business school?
Actually, when you're applying before, once you've decided that this is a school you want to apply to, I think that's the right time to, reach out to alums and current students and understand that, how the school fits into your goal. And, I personally feel that every school has very specific traits that are relevant to some people and are not relevant to others. So anyone who's applying should, get in touch with alumni as early as possible, so that you know what the school is all about, and you can highlight those aspects of your personality in your application and during your interview.